Yes, yes, yes. Let every heart prepare love room. Let it prepare, prepare, prepare. And of course, that's what we've been talking about. And so I hope now, as you're thinking about preparing, you're hearing that melody and hearing that song that way. Let every heart prepare, prepare, because that's what we're doing. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello. It is so good to be here with each and every one of you. And I want to get right in because I have something powerful to share with you today as we continue our Prepare series. So, where have we been? We started in week 1 with the message, let's get intentional. And I gave you a writing exercise, the ideal scene, right? To begin to get intentional about our year. And there's a word that I use that's so critically important because it's a way to look at and think about our year that I don't think we normally do, and that's to be definite about the year, to actually define the year. Other people are defining the year. Forecasters are defining the year. Media outlets are defining the year. Last week, I even shared, even some people are defining what your resolutions should be and what resolutions are achievable for you and what resolutions will make you happy and will make you healthier. But you have the opportunity to define. In last week, unfurl your sails. So we were creating more momentum around this idea of defining our year and getting intentional about our year, but understanding something very powerful, that we are co-creating, that it is God in, through, and as us that is doing the work. God is the wind. And so we unfurl our sails and we let the masterful, powerful, efficient work of God be done in, through, and as us. And so I encourage you to go back to that message, maybe grab the poem by Nellie Olmsted Lincoln, memorize it, put it somewhere to remind yourself daily that our job is to unfurl our sails. Our job is to be the captain of our ship and be deliberate about unfurling the sails and keeping them up. Because as long as they're up, guess what? The wind is going to do its job. The wind is going to do what it's supposed to do easily and effortlessly. And so, as I was preparing for where this message would go, there's something interesting that came to mind. Here in the United States, we have what would be considered 11 essential traffic laws. 11 essential traffic laws that every driver must know in order to pass the driving test and also to be an effective and efficient driver, right? These are things like the basic speed rule, right? That even the speed limit that's posted, that's based on ideal conditions. So if you're in the middle of a snowy blizzard, although the speed limit says 55, you wouldn't drive 55 in the middle of a blizzard, right? So there's a basic speed rule. Here in the U.S., driving on the right side of the road, obeying traffic control devices, the stoplights and the stop signs, always signaling your intentions, using your signals. I know that's not something we always do. And maintaining a safe following distance, right? And there are others, but we recognize that these essential traffic laws are rules of the road. Right? And all drivers have learned and accepted these rules of the road and follow these rules of the road so that we can have a wonderful and safe experience. And in most cases, many of the accidents that happen, it's because someone didn't follow the rules of the road, or someone forgot to follow the rules of the road, or someone ignored the rules of the road. And so that got me thinking. Now that we have created our ideal scene for 2022, now that we have a picture of what we want to be, do, and have in 21, now that we have written down what ease looks like for us in 2022, now that we have defined our year, now that we have articulated to the best of our ability what a typical day might look like, and we know now that our job is to keep our sails unfurled, remembering that God is the wind that does the work. How do we navigate the journey ahead? What things do we need to know? What steps do we need to take? What are the rules of the road? And so today we're going to talk about 3 rules of the road, because just as I shared, the U.S. traffic laws has 11 essential guidelines or rules of the road, and we can't talk about them all. I think these 3 are important. 1, pay attention. 2, be flexible. 3, say no. These are not the only rules of the road, as I just said, but these are three rules you must know and follow if you want to succeed in co-creating the life that you've imagined. 1, pay attention. 2, be flexible. 3, say no. So let's look at rule 1, pay attention. Now, you all have heard me share over and over again, particularly throughout this year, at various times, the 3 secrets to answered prayer. Right? What are the 3 secrets to answered prayer? One, if you don't know, I encourage you to go back to, I believe it's December 2018. Your prayers have been answered, because that December series was all about these 3 secrets. But the keys to answered prayer: prayer is answered through you, prayer is answered when you listen, and prayer is answered when you welcome everything in. Prayer is answered through you. Prayer is answered when you listen. Prayer is answered when you welcome everything in. Now, what's interesting is your ideal scene, that writing exercise of defining what your 2022 will be, that's actually a prayer. Remember, what is prayer? We define this as we went through the 7 series, I want to call it, but the 7 habits of prosperous people. Prayer is what? A definite movement of mind in a definite direction to accomplish a definite end. What did we talk about in week 1? We talked about that word definite, that we have to be definite in our intentions if we're going to get intentional. Otherwise, we're just talking loud and create nothing, right? And so prayer is a definite movement of mind in a definite direction towards a definite end. That's what your ideal scene is. So this is a prayer. And so as you are moving in a definite direction toward a definite end, paying attention means you must be an active participant in the beautiful unfolding of your life in 2022. That's actually something to write down, because this is interesting, right? Yes, there's an active participation in your writing of your ideal scene, and your writing and creating what you will be, do, and have. But paying attention now is how you must be active in the new year, an active participant in the beautiful unfolding of your life. Your active participation starts with your awareness. Your active participation starts with your awareness. You must know that nothing that occurs in 2022 will be random, by happenstance, or coincidental. But if you're not paying attention, that's what you're going to think. If you're not paying attention and all of a sudden your debit card isn't working, you're going to think maybe something is against you, right? You may not lean in and get curious. If you're not paying attention, then you might even think a certain diagnosis from a doctor is just random. If you're not paying attention, then some new assignment on your job that initially feels overwhelming might seem random or happenstance, or something is against you. But the truth is, if you are intentional and definite, and you're defining your year and you're writing out what your year will be, then life is working through you to bring forth that thing through the path of least resistance. And many times that comes in the form of what seems to be unwanted. And so one of the ways that we must pay attention is something that PY and I refer to often from Abraham Hicks. Feeling is the first manifestation. One of the first things that we must pay attention to is our emotional life. And we must learn how to manage and navigate and get in conversation with our emotions, because this is one of the things that's going to be like a lamp guiding you through this path toward your good. Now, in the book, The Astonishing Power of Emotions, Abraham says this: the emotions that you feel in any moment of life are the indicators of the vibrational relationship between you and you, capital Y-O-U. Your emotions are telling you whether your current active thought and subsequent vibrational offering matches the vibration of your evolved source self or not. When the signals match or come close to matching, you feel wonderful. When the signals do not match, you do not feel so good. And so, an awareness of your emotions and what they mean is essential to your conscious evolution. And so this is very important. This is something powerful to understand about emotions. So often we wait for the physical manifestation of whatever it is that we're intending or whatever it is that we've written down, right? So you want a new car in 2022. And so you're not paying attention to anything until the car shows up. Right. But actually, the feeling is the first manifestation, and those emotions are it's what's guiding you. It's sort of like playing a game of hot and cold, guiding you towards an easy, wonderful, effortless physical manifestation. And so it's important to pay attention to your emotions. Your emotions are guides, because see what happens also is that many times, because we don't pay attention to our emotions, thinking about the rules of the road and we're driving, if you're paying attention to your emotions, somewhere along that route, there's an off-ramp to ease and effortlessness that will take you to what it is that you desire. But if we're not paying attention to our emotions, we might miss that off-ramp. Why? Because we were focused on fear, doubt, and worry, or we were stressed out, or we were angry, or we were annoyed, or we were resentful, or we were living in unforgiveness, and we're focused on all these other things and other people, and we can't see that off-ramp towards ease and effortlessness. And so your emotions are conversations with God in you, right? Abraham says the relationship between you and you, capital Y-O-U, she goes further and she says the vibration of your evolved source self or not. Another way to just think about this in this context is where you want to go, right? There's where you want to go and what you want to manifest, what you want to be, do, or have, what you want to demonstrate, what you want to co-create. There's whatever the distance is between that reality and where you are now, your emotions can let you know. Right? And so we pay attention to our emotions. We must pay attention to our emotions. When you feel fear, doubt, worry, or any unwanted emotion, don't push through it. Again, this is something that some people do. This is a way that people teach or think this is how you can achieve. But you don't have to do that. Enter into the conversation. Start here. The beautiful lesson, you hear me refer to it so often, right? In A Course in Miracles, I am never upset for the reason I think. But let's insert any emotion, right? It doesn't have to be upset. I am never fearful for the reason I think. I am never angry for the reason I think. I am never doubting for the reason I think. I am never annoyed for the reason I think, right? So you start there. That's a truth. So I feel this emotion. It's here. It's real. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand. I'm not going to push it down. I'm not going to try to smile over top of it. I'm not going to do any of those things that I used to do. But I'm going to know this truth that I can enter into a conversation. I am never doubtful for the reason I think. And then I ask myself the question, okay, what is being revealed? What is this here to show me? I enter the conversation and I pay attention. And why do I do that? Because again, then that keeps me free and clear to see the off, that is really taking me to the off ramp of ease and effortlessness, right? Because once I clear that and I understand what's going on, right, then I'm going to start to feel good, right? And as I'm starting to feel good, as Abraham says, when the signals match or come close to matching, you feel wonderful. And so you follow from good feeling to 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 the physical manifestation. Right? The hard way is I'm going to push through, struggle, hustle, push through, stay up late and not get sleep, but I made it, right? You don't have to do it that way. But the reason that most humans think that we have to do it that way is because they haven't followed this rule of the road, right? To pay attention. There are lots of other things that we need to pay attention to, but for this guidance and for moving through and supporting you and actually realizing your personal dream, right? Realizing your ideal scene, it is important that you pay attention to your emotions and enter into the conversation. So we pay attention. 2, be flexible. So part of this rule of the road, rule number 2, be flexible, is already built into the exercise that I gave you in week 1, right? The writing exercise, I said in that exercise, spend some time with your ideal scene. New thoughts and ideas may come to mind a few days later, add them. And as you reread your ideal scene, you may realize that some of the things you wrote down, you're not really excited about. Remove them. So this is the first component of the flexibility, that this ideal scene, this document is a living document, right? It's a living intention, right? Because you start from the vantage point of where you are, right? But as you continue to move, you're going to get new information or things you want to do and change. Abraham, in the creative workshop process, writes about this idea of using your daily life to gather data, gather information. Right? You may say you want a new car, and you know what car you want right now. But there's a car that comes out next year that you didn't know about. It's December 2022. You didn't know about that car. If you had known about it, that's the car you would have written, right? And so you don't want to penalize yourself and force you, I wrote this in December, so I got to buy this car. No. Right? So new information may come forward. At the same time, you may realize that something you wrote down in this month maybe was rooted in lack and limitation. Something you wrote down this month was really rooted in you thinking it would fulfill you, or you thinking that it would make you happy. And you realize now, I don't need to do that, right? Maybe it was rooted in comparison, as I talked about last week. Now, in It Works by RHJ, he writes this about this flexibility. He says, change the list daily, adding to it or taking from it until you have it about right. Do not be discouraged on account of changes, as this is natural. There will always be changes and additions with accomplishments and increasing desires. So this is very important. Many times we force ourselves to be very rigid when it comes to what we're writing down. But again, this is a malleable document. This is a living document. This is a moldable document that you've created. He goes on. When new desires deserving a position at the top of your list come to you, then you may rest assured you are progressing correctly. Removing from your list items which at first you thought you wanted is another sure indication of progress. And this is part of where the paying attention comes in again, because in paying attention, you're gonna start to realize and feel the emotion behind some of the things that you're writing down, right? And you can then start to see, right, if the doubt, fear shows up, right, what's really behind that, right? Maybe you need to heal something. Somebody told you something years ago about what you can't do, and so you realize that their voice is still there. And so you might need to do some forgiveness work and some releasing work so that the voice that you're hearing is the voice of spirit. But I love how he says it's a sure indication of progress. Another aspect of flexibility is something that I'm always reminded of Mary Manning Morrissey when I heard her talk about this idea that you can ask any question of life, that you can ask any question of the universe, and we know that the answer is always yes. And so you may have started your ideal scene with ensuring that all your bills are paid each month, but you could expand it, right, and realize that you can pay all of your bills can be paid, and you can spend 6 months in Paris. Right? You may not have considered that, but as you continue to work with this and as you continue to expand your belief and your knowing, you're going to realize that the greatest thing you wrote is still small. Right? Of course, that was wonderful. Everybody wants to make sure their bills are paid every month, but there's so much more, right? And the winds of God can blow you in the direction of all bills are paid. It can blow you in that, right? If that's the sail you put up, right? But it could also blow you in the direction of all your bills are paid and you spend 6 months in Paris or whatever location feels good for you. So please remember that your new year will unfold and be revealed day by day, week by week, month by month. Stay open to new ideas. Stay open to removing other ideas. Be like a tree that bends with the wind. Now, there's one more aspect of flexibility, and this is something that I shared with the Jumpstart class a few weeks ago. In the spirit of remaining flexible, and it has to do with the how, because again, we can get into this rigidity that doesn't serve us. So I shared this example. Imagine you were choosing to take a trip. You're in New York, and you want to fly to LA. Okay. And so you said you wrote it in your ideal scene. I'm flying from New York to LA. And so you book the trip, you book the flight, you're on the plane, you're on your way, and something happens and the plane is grounded in Cleveland. Okay. Now the plane is grounded in Cleveland, and unfortunately there are no planes flying to LA. There's no other way for you to fly to LA. That plane that you were on was the only one. Now, if you're being rigid, right, which is the opposite of flexible, then you would still be trying to fight and fight and fight. I know I need to get on a plane. No, I need to fly to LA. No, I need to fly to LA. No, I need to fly to LA. Now, was the goal flying to LA or being in LA? I believe this is going to help somebody today. Was the goal flying to LA or being in Los Angeles? And if the goal is being in Los Angeles, then that means that when the flight is grounded in Cleveland, it's like, okay. So what I know is that there are more than one way for me to get to Los Angeles, for me to get to California. So then you could rent a car and drive. You could look into train situations, and then maybe a car later, or flying from some other city, whatever. Right? There are all these other options. All these other options that are available to you when you remain flexible, right? So you can consider other modes of transportation that will get you there. Be flexible. There are infinite ways to get to your defined destination. But you have to be clear about something. This is a wonderful question to ask yourself, and I guarantee you, this is going to come back to you next year. You're going to find yourself you didn't realize you were being rigid, right? You didn't realize that you were trying to grab hold to a how. And it's like, wait, was my goal flying to LA or being in LA? My goal is being in LA. And so I stay open. I stay open and available. And again, then you bend just with the wind, just like the tree, and you won't break. What are the rules of the road? Pay attention. Be flexible. And the third rule today, say no. Now, I'm laughing at this because, we put so much emphasis on the power of yes, right? There's wonderful songs, we sing Shekinah glories. Yes, there's more that I require of thee. So will you say yes? And we cry, oh, yes, and we do visioning. And there's a point in visioning where we tap into the sacred yes factor, because we know that there must be a yes behind the vision that it is that we want to create. But I think we often overlook the power of no, which is actually built in to the power of yes. Now, some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, PG, did you just say that prayer is answered when you welcome everything in? How do I say no while welcoming everything in? I think that's a wonderful question. And so let's talk about it. So first, let's look at what we're actually doing when we say yes. When we say yes, we're actually also saying no to something else. But instead of the energy of a pushing against in terms of saying no, what we're really doing is choosing. If I was at a restaurant and I chose the linguine, I am in effect saying no to the spaghetti. If I was at a restaurant and I chose the chicken, I am in effect saying no to the fish. Do you hear that? Do you understand that? And so this rule of the road is all about being deliberate and intentional and conscious about what we're inviting in. Intentional, deliberate, and conscious about what we are choosing. Because that's really where the power of no comes in, and the saying no. Yes, the spiritual truth is to welcome everything in, but what does that mean? That means that we don't try to stomp out unwanted emotions. As we just talked about, we're going to pay attention. We're not going to mute our emotions. We're not going to push them down and push them back. We're not going to mute our voice in any way. But that means if we're welcoming everything in, that means we don't judge ourselves if we haven't progressed as far as we thought we would have. That means we say no to all the self-sabotaging ways and habits that have kept us in a loop of not being, doing, and having all that we're worthy of. That means we say no to old concepts of God. Pastor Yolanda in the meditation today, she reminded us of the real concept of God, the affirming concept of God, the loving concept of God, the giving concept of God. We don't have to do nothing to get that love and that givingness concept of God. So saying no means that we also say no to negative images of ourselves, because God is in us. And so as we have an affirmative and intentional concept of God, we must have an affirmative and intentional concept of ourselves. Saying no means we say no to negative self-talk. And so when we say no to those things, what are we choosing? See, then that means inherently we are saying yes to our worthiness. It means that inherently we are saying yes to a God that is loving. It means inherently we are saying yes to a beautiful picture of ourselves that affirms that we are powerful, brilliant, amazing, just as we are. When we're saying no to those other things, then we are saying yes to it, no longer saying no to the sabotaging ways. We are now saying yes to those things that are constructive, those things that build us up, those things that support us, those things that are life-giving, those things that are beneficial. And so then what this means is that your ideal scene becomes a powerful support system in making decisions, in choosing. Is this in alignment with my definition of 2022? Is what I'm about to do, is where I'm about to go, is who I'm about to hang out with, is what I'm about to say yes to in agreement or disagreement with my definition of 2022? And if it ain't in agreement, say no. If it ain't in agreement, say no. Because you're choosing. You're not pushing against. You're not calling anybody out. You're not making anybody wrong. You're not living in a higher vibration than somebody else. You're not knowing more than anybody else. None of that. Because that's not what a no is. It is choosing what you want and then focusing on that and that alone. Right? This is part of the issue that we're seeing playing out in the world, right? Everybody's going to make different choices, right? We talk about this all the time, and I love the way that Abraham Hicks talks about it. Sameness is not the goal. And that's a spiritual principle that we see play out. I use music as the example, right? If you take a chord, right? The C major chord is made up of 3 very distinct notes. Those tones are actually different frequencies. They can be measured as a different number, C, E, and G. You would not have the beautiful chord of hello, hello, hello. You wouldn't have the beautiful chord that those three notes bring together if they were the same, because it would be hello, hello, hello. That's not a chord. And so we recognize that we're not after sameness. But here's the thing. Whatever it is that you're choosing, right? Once you've looked at your ideal scene and it's like, if it ain't in agreement, I'm saying no, then you're choosing something else. And then just focus on that. You ain't got to talk about what somebody else is doing. You ain't got to post about what somebody else is doing. You ain't got to shame what somebody else is doing. You ain't got to judge what anybody else is doing. You simply focus on what you're doing and keep living and keep thriving and keep succeeding. And keep living according to your definition of the year. See, that's the difference between saying no versus being in resistance. That's the difference than saying no, as I'm saying here, versus pushing against. And we talked about it in a previous sermon. When we're pushing against, we create friction. And how do you know you're in friction? Because just like a machine, friction is what breaks down a machine. And then that's where the wear and tear happens. And so if you're seeing or feeling or experiencing wear and tear, that's an indication that you're actually pushing against. You're not focused on what you're choosing. And so this is powerful. What are the rules of the road? 1, pay attention. 2, be flexible. 3, say no. Feeling is the first manifestation. And so it's important that we pay attention to how we feel. It's important that we pay attention to our emotions because they are a guide as we navigate 2022. But we must also be flexible. We stay open to new ideas. We stay open to bigger ideas because as great as what we have written in 2021 may be, there are still bigger ideas that are possible for us in 2022. Be flexible. Know that there are infinite hows. Let God guide you down the path of least resistance. The journey may not look like what you thought it would, but the destination will be exactly what you defined. Was the goal flying to LA or being in LA? And then we embrace the power of no. Choose the words, thoughts, and experiences that align with your definition of 2022. If it does not align, the decision is a no to that and a yes to that which does align. If it ain't in agreement, say no. Now, again, as I shared, these are not the only rules of the road. There are many, just as there are many rules of the road in our traffic and our driving laws. But if you follow these rules of the road, I'm sure you will, as Thoreau writes, meet with a success unexpected in common hours. I bless your life. I bless your year. I bless your success. We let it be. We let it be. And to that we simply say, Amen, Ashe, and so it is.